I'm going to ask you a question that I was going to, that I was just going to go back to the past of rock thing. Forget it.
That's all right. You might as well.
Oh, it was about a power feeling that you had, where you could have said something like, okay, let's rush the stage. And you knew that the people would have rushed the stage. And what did that do for your head at those times?
Well, I did that a few times just because I'd always heard about these riots at concerts. And we thought, well, we ought to have a riot, everyone else does, you know? So I tried to stimulate a few little riots, you know. And then after a few times, I realized it's such a joke because it doesn't lead anywhere. It just... But you know what? It got to the point where people didn't think it was a successful concert unless everybody jumped up and ran around a bit. It's a joke because it leads nowhere. You know, I think it would be better to do a concert and just keep all that feeling submerged, and so when everyone left, they'd take that energy out on the streets or back home with them, you know, rather than just expending it.
Kind of.
Yeah, instead of expending it uselessly in a little crowd explosion.
That's probably what Donovan was trying to do in those times, which I guess was about the same time.
I never saw his work.
Well,
his laid-back kind of thing.
Yeah, his thing was, you know, keep quiet, I'm singing. You know, everything's beautiful, kind of flowers, quiet. But it worked with the same people that were going crazy at Door concerts or, you know, at the Beatles, or just screaming their heads off, and it seemed to work. Maybe that was he wanted to see if he could incite a piece.
The places I always enjoyed working were places about the size of the Aquarius Theater.
Santa Monica.
Bigger than a club, but not a sports arena. You know, it's somewhat like an old theater. Those are I think that our particular brand of magic worked best in a theater situation. In outdoor concerts, I've always known what we do just gets totally dissipated. You know, it doesn't work at all.
Oh, another performer that I saw that really did something was James Taylor, and also Carole King. Carole King kind of, I don't know why. She's got this magic. When you stop and realize that she's, you know, all the time you were growing up and listening to songs like Up on the Roof and things like that she'd been writing all those things, and then she comes out and still does contemporary songs that are, you know, as powerful as those things were banal, but with the same kind of power.
Yeah. Up on the Roof wasn't banal, really. Did she do mainly her own songs, or did she do a lot of other people's material?
For us.
Yeah, that's great. She's written so much. She has a catalog of them.
I think occasionally she'll do a James Taylor song or something, and she's been playing with James Taylor. James Taylor has got this kind of, what's popular now probably is this relaxed feeling. I don't know why. Single guitar, acoustic, you know.
I miss more good music because a couple years ago I got 86 for the Troubadour, and I've tried to get in since then. They won't let me back in the club. I miss more good music that way. But,
how is your reputation of
hey Russ?
Hey Jim, how you doing?
Good.
Your reputation as drinker has developed. Is this intentional? Is this part of your knowing what you can do with your image? You enjoy drinking and this can be off the record if you want.
No, no, I went through a period where I drank a lot. I think I had a lot of pressures hanging over me that I just couldn't cope with. And I think also drinking is it's a way to cope with living in a crowded environment, and it's also a product of boredom more than anything. I think people drink because they're bored. But I do enjoy drinking. It's you know, it loosens people up and it stimulates conversation sometimes. And, I don't know. It's like gambling somehow. It's, you know, you go out for a night of drinking and you don't know where you're going to end up the next day. You know? it could work out good and it could be disastrous. So it's kind of a throw of the dice.
It's the disastrous ones that people remember. Well, a lot of what was popular, even as far as drugs and drinking, seems to have died down or mellowed out or something.
Well, I don't know. I think there seem to be a lot of people shooting smack and speed and all that. I think it went from and everybody smokes grass. You know.
Yeah.
I guess you don't consider that a drug anymore.
Well, no.
But 3 years ago, there was that wave of hallucinogenics, and then I don't think anyone really has the strength to sustain those trips forever. And so then you go into narcotics, in which alcohol is one. Instead of trying to think more, you try and kill thought with alcohol and heroin downers. They're painkillers. I think that's what people have gone into.
They're getting into painkillers?
No, I think. Well, I figuratively. Alcohol for me because it's traditional, and also I hate scoring. You know, I hate the kind of sleazy sexual connotations of scoring from people. So I never do that. That's why I like alcohol. You can go down to any corner store or bar and it's right across the table, you know.
Incidentally, in that same Rolling Stone, there's an article about a group in San Francisco doing manufactured 10 joints to a pack or 20 joints to a pack cigarette things that they're selling out in the open, declaring it legal. I think so, yeah. Yeah, in cigarette packages. That might take take some of the edge off. At least take some of the ritual off of the whole drug scene.
I guess marijuana is not really what you'd call a drug anymore.
Yeah, it seems to be a way of life, more or less.
Part of the regular daily diet.
Really? I never think, I just can't function if I'm stoned. I function perfectly well, you know, I sit and stare at something or listen to music for 4 hours, but that's not what I consider functioning. You know.
I can't either. I think, well, what happens is they smoke so much and so constantly that it's not a trip anymore. It just becomes, I think they build up a cellular tolerance for it. It just becomes part of their body chemistry. And they're not really that, they're beyond stone. They're just,
level out.
Yeah, I know, that's...
It's really a treat now for me because I get so stoned every time I get stoned. It's so good.
it's chilly in LA. I guess this is the closest to winter we ever get here.
This is why all those people came to California, I guess.
Yeah, I just came out here a couple of years ago, and when it rains, I just refuse to accept the fact because it's always sunshiny in California and it never rains. So.
I love rain.
Do you?
Yeah.
I thought.
You get to really like things like that out here because it's always like this.
Well, I went back to New York.
Pray for snow.
I went back to New York and it was just so dirty and grimy and just
That's
terrible.
where you're
It
from?
started to rain, yeah. It started to rain in Manhattan. I said, wow, this is going to be great. This is going to be something, you know, this guy's going to wash all this shit away. And the rain started, I had a white shirt on, the rain started landing on the shirt and leaving little brown spots. I just said, you know, like, this is all over. And then, you know?
It's no longer just rain clean my car even. I used to far out, my car's going to get washed. I come out now, it's just dirtier than it was before.
Well, at least, you know, you can see that hill after it's been kind of rainy weather.
Yeah.
And I've been, I guess you can sit here and not see that hill on a bad day.
Yeah, easy. Thank God for the wind. My favorite part now.
Have you read any Buckminster Fuller?
Unfortunately, I haven't. Some friends of mine like him, and I've meant to, so I know some of his ideas you're talking about. But
You know, when you start to get depressed about the fact that the air is brown and that you know you're dying just by breathing and things like that, you read Buckminster Fuller and he sort of says, "It's okay, we're going to put a geodesic dome over it and pump out the air next year." You know,
Which makes it twice as scary because then it becomes a reality.
which the dome or the other
You're
thing?
going to have to do it.
I hear that he owns part of an island in the Mediterranean, and he's off Crete or somewhere, and he's going to invite people from all over the world to
Oh, do a community.
do I suppose, kind of utopia, a
Yeah.
utopian city there, which ought to be very interesting to watch. I know a lot of people would like to be invited. I wonder if they take applications or how he's going to choose.
This sort of things are very special. There's a city outside of Pondicherry, India called
Could I have a vodka Collins? You want another one? One more for the
I
end.
can't drink any more tomato juice though. I'm too full of that. Let's have a glass of red wine.
Red wine.
Yeah.
More coffee or anything?
No, I'm probably up for a beer though.
We have Budweiser, Michelob, Low and Brown.
Long breath.
Have you ever heard of that city, Oroville, that's outside of Pondicherry, India? The Universal City of Life.
No, what's all?
It's based on the teachings of Sri Aurobindo. And presently led by, I guess you would say, spiritually led by, and physically led by, I'm going to call the mother. And you really have to go through a lot to get in that place. I mean, you really have to be accepted on
Is this in India?
Yeah, it's
I know
right
some
outside
people that tried to go
Pondicherry.
there, and they got as far as London, and they kept sending telegrams, could they go, and they kept getting at no's. And they just kept getting closer, and they kept getting more no's, and they never got in. I think if I were to start an ideal city, I wouldn't tell anyone. That would be your first bad step. You'd have interviewers there, you know, first thing.
Yeah, you can dissipate too many ideas in interviews. You really can. But I also believe in the interview as a new art form, and some of the most interesting things I've read recently have been self-interviews by writers. I think they're fascinating.
I could see that.
Like Harvey's.
Did he do one?
Yeah, he wrote the piece that was in Playbill, and he also read the piece that appeared somewhere else. I can't remember.
The thing that was in the theater, the Tabor program.
Right. Where he wrote his review of himself. It was beautiful. I mean, you understood it.
Harvey's off in Denmark right now, I guess. It's great.
I just got a postcard from him that said he had met my favorite actress, and that Kim Stanley, and that she was this and that, witty and charming and beautiful and gorgeous and intelligent and attractive and fabulous. Everything you'd expect her to be.
What was she doing? A film over there, or a play, or what?
About what, I'm not quite sure.
Maybe doing one of his plays.
Before Harvey.
Great. How did Rosewood do? You got, that's good. You got pretty good reviews.
Well, I guess Harvey was carrying around a review that he loved personally that was from someone in Orange County, some small paper, that ripped the play apart on the basis of four-letter words, and it just went on, and the fellow concluded by saying, "And to think I brought a lady to see this play."
They didn't leave, did they?
I don't know. They might have.
Sullivan's review in the LA Times listed names twice.
Yeah.
Review I've ever seen about anything.
Well, Harvey was going around trying to figure out some way to meet this person without the guy knowing who he was. just to tell you. What? Jessup was the little guy.
His play gave me not so nice stuff.
I thought it was fantastic.
This play gave you nuts and you saw it?
I thought maybe it was something I'd eaten the first time I saw it. I realized that it really had a very heavy psychological effect on me. It made my stomach weird. I mean, it's sort of like going back to the primal scream or something. There's something, obviously, that...
That's going to become very big. The primaling and primal screaming and the whole thing.
I haven't read that book yet. It's really interesting.
I haven't either, but now that Lennon is onto it, they're going to be.
Does Jen off use physical contact too? Like some therapists are doing now. Actually slapping people and holding on to them.
I don't.
I haven't read the book, but I don't believe so.
Yeah. We could discuss it authoritatively if you like. None of us knowing anything. Yeah. That's always been one of my prime pleasures is reviewing records without listening to them, or going in school just doing book reviews on imaginary books, and constantly, because it was just so much more fun than what you had to do.
Borges does some of those. He says, "Why write a novel anymore? All you really need is a review
of your novel."
So he just writes reviews of novels that he's never written. Yeah, they're great too.
Yeah.
What kind of coat is that guy? Rabbit? Looks like rabbit. To make the phone call.
You probably missed most of production. You probably missed most of the production of the paper, you lucky.
That's what I'm calling. Tell them I'm not coming today. No, they don't start till 2 or 3.
I was hoping they would start. Too bad.
What time is it getting to be?
About 1:45, I guess.
So you grew up in New York? Manhattan or outside?
Long Island.
You don't have a heavy New York accent like a lot of people.
I think I've tried not to.
So I would have thought you were a California boy. Often
Using my California girl.
You can spot New Yorkers by their accent very often.
when I first came out here, I was telling people back home, you know, like, you've got to leave, you just got to leave. And no one seems to listen. People invent reasons for wading through shit. Just, you know.
So how many years have you been out here?
Almost 2. Came out, I was teaching in New York, and I came out for the earthquake that was supposed to happen a year ago, May.
Right.
We got a couple of friends and I got a car. I just thought that the best thing that could happen is if we were in the middle of an earthquake. You know,
Right.
something that would you know, be an event of the century. It's you know, not something to be missed. So we got in this car and just raced out here. It's supposed to be good, you know, to hit the deadline date, and then it didn't happen. That's kind of disappointment.
People were buying coastline property out in the desert.
Yeah, right. On the other side of the San Andreas Fault.
Well, what happened? Did that really have expert opinion behind the prediction, or was it just...
I think that the experts said that, yeah, it's got to happen sometime. and they said, you know, within the next 10 years, and there hasn't been a little earthquake in a while, so the chances of a big one increase proportionally. And a bunch of people just picked up on it and picked up on a date. And, you know, it's like anything. Once you get your hype together, you don't need the event anymore.
For all intents and purposes, it happened.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been an event to remember.
Well, one thing that's just always, I've always thought would just be incredible is just be sitting in my living room, stoned out of my head, and have the whole house bouncing up and down, and just very calmly saying like, wow, it must be good dope.
Yeah, let's go out in the street and observe the desolation for a while. I used to love earthquakes. San Francisco earthquake, that was a great one. And,
Peru really came out of it.
they've had them for centuries. Really great.
Really like that. That was fun to see.
So Allen Ginsberg goes on that what man has done is put these concrete blisters all over the earth. And the earth just naturally is trying to push them off into the ocean or get rid of them and trying to breathe. When he says it, you believe him. He doesn't seem to be a man that would lie. Blisters. There's like scabs all over the world. It's really a fitting image if you could sort of look at the earth from the moon or something.
Highline's description of mankind, he said it's an ambulatory planetary cancer. I'll never forget that. It just stuck in my mind.
Some people I know have figured out that gorillas and men could mate. Genetically, the chromosomes match up enough so that they could mate. They're trying to grow something by mating a gorilla and a person. Probably a female person. No. A female person and a male gorilla or something. Through artificial insemination. You know, complicated biological processes. And one of the reasons for doing it is to get like equal opportunity for gorillas. Because if they came out with something, it would mean, you know, that it was criminal to cage gorillas because it would prove that gorillas were a variance of humans. They were the same species or whatever.
All the gorillas would run free and all the monkeys.
Either that or all the people would be locked up, which might just be better.
Everybody should run free.
you don't see that very often anymore.
Miniskirt and white boots.
It's kind of nice. Maybe that'll come back in.
I've been doing interviews lately, doing some short stories, trying to sell them. You know, that's...
It must be rough. There's not a big market for short stories.
Well, I haven't found any market, so I don't imagine it's a very big one. I did a play that one person I showed it to was a fellow who's had some in New York. A friend of mine's had stuff done on Broadway. Suggested that a weatherman group do it in a fallout shelter, which says something for it. You know. It says that, you know, its commercial potential is rather low, but there is, you know, something.
What's the play about?
It's a musical comedy about paraplegics and spastics, and it's political. The heroine is a Statue of Liberty, and all the characters, Planters Peanut and Uncle Sam and Zip Code Man, and those are kind of all the characters.
Sounds like a Zap comic.
I've never read Zap comics, but probably it does.
They're great.
I can't. I don't know. I somehow look at them and don't find them that funny. I don't know. Yeah.
Quite grasped those, but
They're very insidious because you start seeing fantasy. You start seeing life as a Zap comic after a while.
fantasies that you have never developed in the print. You got Snatch and all those the really gross ones.
It's almost an overload, you know, when you're learning something.
Yeah. Those ones with the pirates. You can sit in one of those pictures and look for hours, you know.
I know, comics, I turned off the comics, I didn't know, when I started doing grammar in elementary school, and I was trying to look for an example of when to use a period or something, and I looked in a comic book and there was nothing but exclamation points, and I said, something's wrong. You know, like, there's got to be things other than exclamation points. And somehow, after that, the comics just never did it to me.
You ought to read a Zap comic sometime when you're, you know.
I've seen them and gone through them, but...
Didn't react to it.
The whole tremendous amount of different ones now.
What is it like working on the Free Press? I always been curious.
I don't work for them,
that's
like
right.
full-time or anything.
Is it
I could describe my impression of what it was like.
is it
Mass hysteria for 3 days out of the week, 4-day weekends.
I'd be working like inside a box of animal crackers.
Yeah, you have to rise above it, hopefully. You can get very swept up in there's a lot of factional games going on, which is the downfall of the Free Press, I guess. For the major downfall.
It's funny how much, excuse me, it's funny how much power the Free Press actually has. As far as it's the same thing with record companies. There's, the thing that I do for the Free Press, the Free Press is a major underground outlet in LA. In fact, it's probably the only one, isn't it? The only underground outlet, except for maybe underground radio stations, as far as record companies are concerned. And so, whatever gets said in there about their records or about people is just immensely important. It has a large circulation. So there's this sort of self-feeding cycle that goes on, where there are all kinds of bribes from record companies and things going on. So, you know, just to keep the circle
I
going.
wouldn't say they're bribes. At least they're not visible.
I don't know. It makes a difference.
you get into concerts, you get albums.
Oh, in that way, yeah. There's always that they keep feeding you with things.
You know, at least $100 a year worth of stuff from each of many record companies, a minimum of $100 a year. You know, things that comes to, you know, like $1,500 a year or something.
Christmas presents, or they don't go that far.
That's very rarely. PR companies sometimes do it if you just accidentally really hyped a group that made well because of your thing. Then they send, you know, maybe someone gets a watch.
Some companies do. Columbia sent out Christmas presents to major reviewers.
Right.
It was really kind of obscene. I think it is. I really do. I mean, all the Christmas cards I got from the record companies, I got a rubber stamp that said "Same to you" and just sent it back to them.
You get gratuities, you get, you know, tabs when you go to clubs and stuff, you get to drink all you want, record companies with that, and things like that.
And in a way, it's coming out of your pocket, or out of the artist's pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, a lot of it's distasteful. A lot of it is, good as far as you doing your job, but fairly often it exceeds what's necessary.
I don't despise journalism at all. In fact, I like it.
I know.
Let's face it. Who reads novels anymore unless they're really dirty or some?
Or good.
Yeah, which are few and far between. It's the journalism that's most interesting. I guess things are happening so fast. They're so confusing now that people are more interested in the evening news and talk shows. They're just interested in what other people are thinking and what's actually happening. Than
I think the surface.
I can't think of anyone at the Free Press that considers themselves to be a journalist. I really can't.
There are very few left.
No,
At the paper?
well, there's no. It depends on what type of journalist. Hard news. We don't cater to hard news. We did it one time. I mean, there's a time when I was going out around the city taking pictures, and there is nothing like that.
But I kind of think of journalism as whether it's news or whether it's human interest or whatever kind of thing of going out and researching something and talking to people and coming up with a story. But I think that I don't know how much of that goes on.
There's too much. I don't know. There seems to be too much of a deadline pressure where you really don't research a story. You just you find out surface information as much as you possibly can, the wires from interview, and then you write it. You don't do this, study and investigative reporting and all that.
It's more of a mechanics assembly.
I always read the Free Press, but it's more like it takes about 10 minutes. It's more.
I rarely read.
Well, you get a kind of, it's the texture of a magazine. I don't mean, and it's even partly the physical texture of the paper and all that. But I mean, it's just, even if you didn't read English, you could get kind of a feel of a city or something by reading the Free Press. The ads. You can tell the change in mores over the years by looking at the ads in the Free Press.
Quite exotic now.
They're getting more and more exotic.
Hardcore. It's really not the hardcore. There's magazines and papers now that just exceedingly prurient, I guess is the word.
And then you get a certain slant on stories that you wouldn't get in the LA Times, for example. You'd get a different coverage of the Manson trial than you would get in another publication.
Yeah, the Manson thing is a little different with the Free Press because they've got Ed Sanders doing that. He just does a beautiful job of the coverage that he's doing. I think that's an exception, and
He's not really with the Free Press. He was.
Yeah, it's a paid exception.
He wanted to do that.
He's a Manson entirely. That's
Well, he's doing a book, and probably that's sort of a side income for him to do a story, and probably he's compelled to say something once a week. Any writer is compelled to do something.
I wonder if he'll edit his stories much when the book comes out.
The book's
add a lot.
completely different.
The book is he's a trivia freak, and he's going to go into all these really involved. You hear him talk, it's just amazing about this. He probably knows more about the Manson trial and the people involved than the lawyers. Everyone it seems. And
Even the people directly involved.
Because there are so many people. There's so many murderers out now, and there's stories about heads.
Has he made up his mind on what actually happened?
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, he doesn't.
It has to do with dope coming in and lettuces in the supermarket. That's what it gets down to. The whole thing was a drug burn, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Drug burn. That was one of the original theories when it first happened, and that kind of got lost.
It got so confused because of
and they're just crazy murderers, crazy people.
But he thinks they actually did it. About the way that the prosecution says it happened.
That's another case where Sanders was just upset because Manson had absolutely no part in the trial. I mean, he's just extraneous. in a way that again, it's, you know, culture on trial, where Manson's a symbol of something, and whether he did it or not really didn't make too much difference.
Has he been able to talk to Manson?
I think so, yeah.
In jail, or what is this impression? Did he write about that? I may have missed that episode.
I don't think so. I don't know. My impression was seeing him. I went down there once.
Is it hard to get in?
The time I went the day the jury was finally selected, I didn't go for any of the trial stuff. But it was quite, he's just a small man with a tremendous amount of charisma or something. He just didn't emanate anything from me particularly. I don't know. I find not too much use for this anymore.
What probably will happen? I hear they may only get 20 years.
Think about that, Jim. Only 20 years.
Yeah, but I mean, you can, on a 20-year sentence, you can get out in 3 years, conceivably, can't you?
I think, I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do after. I really don't think they care.
I guess that's what happens. They drag it out so long that after a while, no one could care. I suppose that's one of the functions of a trial. You know, they muddy it up so much that you don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah, it's just...
That's what society's way of assimilating a horrible event.
Yeah, it's too bad, though, that if you haven't got the money, or if you're political, that you've got to spend that time being assimilated in jail.
I was thinking of writing down my experiences going through a trial. Can I have one more and check, I guess? Guess we all gotta move on. But suppose I wrote a essay on it. Where do you think would be the best organ of journalism to try and get it printed in?
I think you'd have your choice.
Would Ramparts be better, for example, than Free Press or Rolling Stone, or what would be?
It's a question of status.
Yeah. Well,
you know, it's not a question. Or you can pick your size readership or the type. If you want music freaks to read it, yeah, give it to Rolling Stone. They'll print it.
Yeah.
You know.
Other than that, to read it now.
Yeah,
if you want kind of
Ramparts, but it's. I don't know if it would quite fit in. But I think it'd be perfect for a magazine rather than...
Depending on how articulated it was. Scanlons.
Cut it down to 3 paragraphs.
Scanlons, yeah.
That would be very interesting.
Do they have a large readership, or is it pretty
I don't
low?
know how large it is. It's a very interesting readership.
That's what I do.
Very interesting readership.
I guess Esquire's pretty
Yeah, Esquire
wide.
to it. Or depending on you know what you do, one of the weekly things like Life or Look. I don't know how much they go into that. Might do that.
I'd think it'd be pretty hard to get in there because it's not really that current. You know?
Well, actually, I don't read any of these things, so.
I like magazines. I don't really read them either, but I like to thumb through them and just kind of get a gloss on what's happening. You get a feeling from it.
Things with lots of photographs.
Me too.
That's how I read. I go for photographs.
I could see a magazine of all photographs. It would be universal. It wouldn't depend on language.
Well, Realite, the French thing, used to do that apparently, but I didn't. They're still printing, but I don't know how well they do.
It's still out, you know.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful magazine.
I think they shouldn't have come out in an English edition, just on sort of a snob basis.
Right.
Realite.
Probably set their overhead just soaring too. It must really.
To print in English too.
Probably
Their printing process is so fine. They have such a high quality.
Yeah, well, that other thing, Horizon used to do
Oh, they
a
were
magazine.
beautiful.
I always wished I'd been able to afford them. I was too young then and not making nearly enough money to afford $12 a copy. I don't know, $12, not a copy,
A lot.
but for 4 issues or something.
Yeah.
I That's right. They don't do it anymore, huh?
I don't think
That's
so.
today.
So many things are folding, probably because media has changed a lot. You know, newspapers just keep going under. Where there's one major newspaper in LA. The Examiner doesn't count anymore, really.
I wonder who buys the Examiner.
We have a large Orange County readership.
Is that it? They're more conservative?
It's conservative, right-wing, and...
I guess their headlines is what most people buy them for. If you're looking at a stand and you see two headlines for the same event, you kind of gravitate toward what you think.
But the Examiner kind of does a bad job of what the New York Daily News does a good job of doing. Where the New York Daily News has the same, you know, gory headlines. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Where they just do a beautiful job of yellow journalism. Just great. Where it's you can read it and enjoy it. And the Herald Examiner doesn't.
They're kind of between the Times and the National Enquirer. You know that magazine? I don't mean
that's improved, by the way. They were probably forced out by like Screw and a lot of those magazines. They've become legitimate.
If you'd like to come down to the paper, anytime, just, you know.
All right, I would be interested. Poke around a bit.
Really, you know, today, tomorrow, anything.
Are you in Fairfax or where?
Right across from CBS.
On Beverly.
7813 on Beverly Boulevard.
Or 1713?
7813.
7813. All right. When you say across from it,
across the street, you know, the CBS, the big monster.
Right. On this side of the...
On the north side. On Beverly.
Right. What days are you usually down there?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm there most all the time those days, and then Thursday from home.
And they don't do the printing there, they just do the whole layout there,
Right.
and they send it out.
Tuesday and Wednesday is the day where most of the activity goes on when they put together the paper. And Thursday everybody sits around and does absolutely nothing.
What is the breakdown on subscription mailing versus selling on the streets?
I think our circulation is about 100,000 or so.
It's not really that.
The street and page.
It's probably about 90,000.
Yeah, with returns and things like that. There was print about 100,000. I really don't know how much subscription is. We cover our overhead of printing with our subscription and sales.
And the ads where you make your
The ad is
profit.
where the profit comes from.
I'll tell you, I've gone through periods where I wouldn't go into the building just because of the vibrations. You know,
Yeah, it can heat it quite
just too
hectic
heavy.
sometimes. Most of the time, you just, you know,
Things
don't
were-
give a shit. You know, if you don't care about those trips and they don't affect you, then it's not, you don't have to work within it.
In a way, there's so much emphasis on everyone doing their own thing. And a lot of times, the people's own thing, you know, it's their own thing and all, but it might not come up to requirements of the paper or whatever, and it should be edited or it should be something, but there is no editing really of any copy. You know, apart for a sentence being cut out or a paragraph being cut out, usually because of length.
Right. All the news that fits.
Yeah.
Together now. I mean, what's the whole...
Brian and Chris, I guess.
Brian?
And Chris Vanessa.
They put the whole paper together?
Most of it.
Well,
Other
they-
people do ads, I think. They do the
The ad
news.
department comes in, like play stories and stuff like that, pictures.
But all the news is...
They disseminate, or it comes into them.
It's a very strange thing. I was telling you before. There's really just a lot of power in you know having 100,000 people listening to you, and then having that there's a lot of money that's changing hands. And a lot of people want to be in on it.
I already got the other...
Oh, you
Why you're wondering.
I thought we were getting away with something.
I can't believe that.
Yeah. I was hesitating whether just to let them make a mistake. I don't know. I'd like to be involved in a magazine someday. I like publishing. I really do.
I think you'll find there's an awful delay
Yeah.
in things that go on.
I guess that's one value, the free press. You can get it out within a couple of weeks. Yeah.
That's a lot of delay sometimes.
Yeah.
But the deadline now is Friday night? Friday night, so that means...
It's very late anyway. Depends on
What's that?
if they want your story.
For the following, well,
I mean,
Wednesday,
you come in
Thursday.
2 hours before the paper goes out sometimes, because then they'll touch it. People coming in and out. You know, it's nice. Takes away from the sheer boredom.
So the sales aren't progressively rising. They kind of hit a level.
No.
As of 6 months ago, they rose, and then they're sort of staying where they rose to, I guess.
But it is, in a way, it's an amazing success story, because I remember the Free Press, when it started, how old is it now?
5, 6 years?
Yeah, because that's just about when I arrived in LA, about 6 years ago. And at that time, the Free Press was indistinguishable from any real small underground paper, you know, and they've really stabilized and become almost a newspaper. Yeah. Well, no, you know, the Free Press in LA is a part of everybody's life in a small way.
In the country, it probably rates as the second of importance, the Village Voice.
Village Voice.
Yeah, being
Well, now we have our own printing plant. There's been a lot of mismanagement. We do have, you know, the bookstores, and, you know, but it's a little Kunkin empire.
Now, when megalomaniacs function well when everything's going well. There comes a time when they don't.
It's almost too noisy here, isn't it?
I'm used to New York, Jim.
Yeah.
It's quiet.
On a hot day, this place it's very pleasant, you know. So what do we got? Through January. 7 Samurai.
Jimbo was the one with the great fight scene.
Right. I saw that. I'd never seen it. Yeah.
Amazing. That's when he wipes out like 300 warriors or something
I haven't seen any of them. I'm going to see them all, I
He starts
hope.
at one point in the road and just goes for however long it is. There's slaves. Warrior after warrior.
It's really not bloody, is it?
No, it's
fairly
not.
bloody.
It's not. Compared to the Wild Bunch, it's like a no play. Really. It's very stylized, almost like a ballet.
What do you think's the point of all the violence in the films? It's come out, I guess, starting with Bonnie and Clyde, it's gotten really explicit violence.
Yeah, they used to just shoot people and they just kind of
They
fall
fell down, right? But Bonnie and Clyde is, did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, and then everyone started. I think it was the Wild Bunch or one of those that had. When someone got shot, there'd be this nice splurt of blood coming out. And then everyone started using that one.
They have holes in the stomach or something.
Yeah, till they've gotten, I haven't seen MASH, but I understand that's, you know, like, incredibly gory. And then you get Satyricon, where they chop the fellow's arm off, and he's holding up a limb, a bleeding limb.
But you don't really believe that stuff.
Oh, I don't know.
Performance before they cut it down.
I didn't see the uncut version. I heard it was much better.
Yeah, it was like you were saying earlier. I walked out for 5 minutes. You know, because I couldn't. It was too brutal for me. I didn't want to see anymore. And it was just amazing.
There's a movie that they previewed in Santa Monica with a,
I wish I'd seen the uncut version.
I haven't seen the new version.
I heard about 5 minutes at the, yeah.
Yeah.
Not only they kept changing the synopsis each time.
Yeah.
What happened? I understand that they had an original version. Warner Brothers wouldn't accept it, and so they gave it to some cutter who wasn't involved in the making of the film at all, and he recut it. And I understand. Well, it's that, you know, if you didn't see the original, how are you gonna know? You know, this one might be 10 times better. But apparently, they really cut the balls out of the whole picture.
Yeah, they
showed
in the footage that wasn't used before.
They showed in one of the first, you know, the first uncut one that got previewed. They previewed it in Santa Monica, one of these, you know, preview night things, with it showing it with an X movie, which means you got people over 18 there, and half the audience walked out.
There's strangest thing. I've never seen an audience do this. One gentleman stopped and said, "What are you, sheep? You don't have to watch this. Everybody, let's leave." And half the audience got up and left.
I know a friend of mine was there. It was in Westwood.
Santa Monica. Yeah.
And he said it was one of the most amazing film experiences because of the audience. They'd gone there seeing another film, and this came on, and well, that's the kind of thing I dig. You know, people throwing things and standing up. And
That used to go on. People used to throw ketchup bottles at the screen.
Right.
I remember that being a big deal. They always used to check you for ketchup bottles when you went in. Maybe this was New York, but that was a thing.
Well, that's what it should be. You know, there's nothing sacred about a movie, and you know.
Well, as far as they're concerned, there's something sacred about, $400 screen or whatever it is.
I'm sure it's more than that. You know, because in places in Hollywood Boulevard now, there's some theaters you'll see big stains on the screen and all that. And it really interrupts, if you're trying to get into the film, you keep looking at this spot. And it must be incredibly expensive to replace a movie screen. You probably have to do it in big sections. Or maybe the whole thing, I don't know. It must be, you can't just make a little patch.
I've seen that done.
I've seen shows like that too, really sleepy theaters.
Yeah, did you see it function in the violence?
I think it's just trying to keep ahead of reality. That's all. If you can put it up in a movie where there's no immediate danger, then somehow you've transcended violence. So they try and make it more and more realistic. I saw one called, it was the guys that made Mondo Connie. They made one called Africa Audio, and then they changed it to Africa Blood and Guts or something. The second time it came around. But they had actual mercenaries shooting natives in Africa, and they had a lot of actual deaths.
Film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there aren't those big spurts of blood coming out or anything.
It's people dying. Yeah, that's something, the first taste that American people got of that was Ruby being killed. Was it Ruby that was killed?
Yeah, on TV.
Yeah, it was live coverage.
Right.
When it was I guess the 1960s comparison to the Zeppelin disaster, or was it the Hindenburg or whatever?
Right.
Where, here we are, folks, there they are getting killed.
They're going to have the Mick Jagger movie, Give Me Shelter. It's going to be on with the death, about...
Where's that going to open? That's not in town here, is it?
That should be interesting.
Yeah.
In a way, doesn't that destroy part of the reversibility of the cinema?
Well, I think that's one of the major functions of cinema is to make people look at what's happening. I mean, whether you like it or not, you have to look at it because it's actually true, supposedly. And I think it's good to make people actually face reality. That's one of the major functions of cinema.
But it's going to be really disorienting for a lot of people. I mean, if, for instance, in Performer, Mick Jagger had been killed, physically, actually killed. That was part of the script, and that's the way the script ran.
But then he lived at the end.
Well, I'm forgetting about that just for the sake of the conversation. Isn't that going to just change the whole outlook of the thing? I mean, it makes it like a Marilyn Monroe movie now, where you're going to see someone who is no longer alive. But
I mean, it's just a movie,
But it becomes a difference in intent, Whether you go to see, say, Performance, whether you're thinking Mick Jagger is great or Mick Jagger was great, it makes a big difference on what the movie means to you and how you react to the movie. The same way that friends of the guy who was killed at Altamont at the Rolling Stones thing are going to look at that movie a lot differently than you or I might look at it. Seeing this, frame for frame, seeing the same thing, at least having the same thing projected into their head.
Yeah, the thing is everyone wants to go see it,
Everyone's going to draw a different experience from it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I like the Maisel brothers films. I like cinema verite very much. You know, it's to me every movie is a documentary because it's real people and things. It's just that, you know, a Hollywood musical from the 40s is a documentary of a lot of people dancing around and singing. It's real people, so they're all documentaries. I like them. I'm sure it'll be a good film. When is that open?
It should be fairly soon. I think it's been cut.
Yeah, they always do good work.
I think I'm going to have to get back.
I got a split too.
Yeah.
Thanks to whoever for lunch. I guess.
Thanks for that.
It's cold weather today.
Here come the picture that you're looking at. Had to give you a chance to focus there. Have you got things going movie-wise now? Anything on you?
Nothing specific. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm in no real hurry.
Now your friend told me a picture of you in somewhere.
You know, in a way, it doesn't matter. I used to be in a big hurry to make films.
Do you find that kind of happens? You don't really just not in a hurry to do anything?
Yeah.
And
The edge kind of gets rubbed off me a little bit.
yeah, I see people now, 16, 17, 18, carrying around, like scratch paper and pencil all the time. In case they get a poem, they got to get it down. And I carry a paper bag in my back pocket in case I hit something going right down.
I think really film is a middle-aged man's sport. I think you have to have a more balanced, experienced view of life to make an interesting film. I mean, that's a dogma or anything, but
what do you consider middle-aged now? I mean,
well,
I think
over 30.
I don't know, I think of you as middle-aged and me as middle-aged. Yeah. What do you think have been good movies that you've seen?
I just see everything, and you know what, I like every movie, even the worst. I always find something to like about it. To me, it's just amazing that you can gather all these supposedly adult human beings together to act out these fantasies. It'll never cease to amaze me how they get people to do that.
Yeah, but look at the way they get people to act out, real fantasies. Like they've got a man playing bus driver.
Yeah, that's today, right now.
And that's probably a harder part to play than Macbeth.
That amazes me too. How they get people to report to work every day.
Yeah.
I guess people get a family and they just have to. There's no way to kid around about it. They have to do it. 2 hours on the Harbor Freeway every day.
Yeah. Well,
somebody's doing it.
there's an awful lot of people that aren't doing that though. That are saying, well, I'd rather shovel shit for 2 days a week than sit behind the desk 5.
In a way, though, I can see the appeal of having somewhere you have to report every day. It gives kind of a form to your life, because otherwise, what would you do with all that time? Good. Yeah, that is true. Most people have no idea what to do. Took away from their jobs, self-sufficient.
Well, that's one of the functions of cinema, isn't it? People have more leisure hours. That's why movies are booming.
I think so. Right. It's just a really kill time.
The entertainment industry, that's what it is.
I would say over a tenth of the population's lifetime is to entertain the other 80 or 90%. And even newspapers fall in that category, really. It's more entertainment than anything.
You get entertainers everywhere. Everything.
You thought you were able to believe cinema that plays. And
I can't believe plays.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that many. I just can't believe them. You know, to me, the beauty of a play is language. And I figured that the text is all important.
in a play.
Yeah.
There's something. I think it's the way a movie is done, where there's so much more time to think all around and edit and just the technical part. I don't know, that impresses me as the hard part of doing a movie is putting it together in your head while you're doing it. You know.
It's usually created in the editing. There are exceptions to that. There's some men that have the whole thing carefully blocked out in their heads before the shooting begins. In other words, they see the whole movie. But I think that's less and less true.
Well, someone like Richard Lester did with Petulia, which I thought was no story at all, nothing at all, and came out with a good movie.
You know what? I know the guy that wrote that, and he said that's the only script he's ever written that actually, when he saw the movie, he could recognize the story that he'd written. And so that's interesting that which really was free-form, was actually well scripted in advance.
I find that hard to...
If it's true, that's an incredible job of writing, I think.
Yeah, well, there's a flash forward that I hadn't seen before that, and there's just...
I like Petulia. I just saw it in a screening room a couple of weeks ago. I liked it very much. I understand people are really divided over it. So.
Yeah, I've spoken to people that hated it, or else just found it to be nothing. I don't know, I found the story to be nothing, but it had a vehicle for the film.
It had a vision that I found very, very true.